The previous strike commentary told the story of America's largest protest, the 1973 National Meat Boycott. It demonstrated that ordinary people can organize themselves and act on a massive scale when they are aroused around something that affects them directly, like the price of food. Today, the price of food is again provoking consumer rage. How can it become a target for mass mobilization? And how can that mobilization converge with the movement-based opposition to Trump and MAGA? The U.S. currently has two overlapping food crises. One is the elimination of food programs for the needy. According to the Center for American Progress, Project 2025 and the Republican Study Committee budget envisioned a transformative dismantling of federal nutrition assistance programs. In January, the Trump administration chaotically froze federal funding, leaving farmers reeling and nonprofits serving the needy worrying about steady access to support from SNAP and Meals on Wheels. In March, the administration cut more than $1 billion of funding from two programs that supply schools and food banks with food from local farms and ranches. These cuts affected school children and small farmers in all 50 states. Despite the end of the government shutdown, millions face cut-off of food assistance right now. The GOP's Big Beautiful Bill, passed earlier this year, cuts the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, often referred to by its former name of food stamps, by roughly 20%. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the addition of new work requirements alone will cause 2.4 million people to lose benefits in an average month. There is also another food crisis that affects everyone, poor and less poor, the fast rising cost of food. As you may have noticed, the price of food in American supermarkets has soared. As surveys indicate, the cost of groceries has become a major source of stress for American consumers. Many consumers compare food prices now to 5 years ago. According to the Department of Agriculture, 5 years ago, the average cost of groceries for a family of 2 working adults and 2 children ranged between $613 and $1,500 per month. In 2025, such a family is spending between $1,000 and $1,600 per month at a grocery store. Food prices have continued rising through Trump's presidency. In September 2025, banana prices were up 7% from a year before. Ground beef had risen 13%, and roasted coffee rose 19%, according to the most recent Consumer Price Index data available as of its writing. As of September, the average cost of a pound of ground beef was $6.30, according to Federal Reserve data, the highest since the Department of Labor started tracking beef prices in the 1980s, and 65% higher than in late 2019. The average retail price of ground roast coffee reached a record high of $9.14 per pound in September, more than twice the price in December 2019, when a pound of ground coffee cost just over $4. Discontent over inflation was a principal cause of Trump's 2024 election victory. It was also a principal cause of the Republican rout in the 2025 elections. But there is little public confidence that either Democrats or Republicans will rectify high food prices, and neither has much in the way of a program to fix it, beyond each blaming the other. In the 1973 meat boycott, households with 50 million members found a way to protest high food prices without waiting for elections. Today, the hundreds of millions of victims of exorbitant food prices may be enraged, but they have not yet found a way to organize themselves and fight back. nor is the movement-based opposition that has challenged Trump's galloping autocracy yet found a way to address food and other affordability issues. Food deprivation presents an opportunity for the movement to defend society against Trump's depredations, to bring a new front and a new constituency into that struggle. Although food inflation has multiple causes, our current food crises are in considerable part a result of actions by Trump and MAGA's would-be autocracy. For example, Trump's tariffs, a significant cause of rising food prices, represent an unconstitutional usurpation of the exclusive authority of the legislative branch to levy taxes. The violent attacks by ICE on immigrant workers, especially on farm workers, has driven workers from the fields, leading to farm labor shortages and rising food prices. And of course, the cuts in SNAP and other food support programs make food immensely more expensive for millions of people. While long-term solutions to food prices and food security will require major reforms in agricultural and other policies, reversing Trump's tariff, anti-immigrant, and anti-SNAP policies could help a lot right now. The anti-autocracy movement has the opportunity to raise the issues of food and other consumer prices as a fundamental part of the way MAGA autocracy is hurting ordinary people. The message can be, the destruction of democracy is hurting your pocketbook. This can open the way for the convergence of pocketbook concerns and the No Kings struggle for democracy. The movement-based opposition can serve as an ally to help people organize themselves and fight for themselves, as households with 50 million members did in the 1973 meat boycott. That boycott grew out of the daily life conditions of millions of people. Mass response to today's food crises will similarly depend on the experiences, feelings, reflections, discussions, and above all, experimental actions of those suffering their consequences. But one of the limits on the meat boycott's success was the difficulty it had formulating concrete demands in a program which could actually realize its objectives. Today, there are proposals in the wind to bring down food prices that are well worth discussing and testing. They include: Item: end all tariffs on food. Trump's tariffs contribute significantly to the high cost of meat, coffee, bananas, and other groceries. Tariffs on Brazilian beef imports are more than 75%, according to the American Farm Bureau Federation. Whatever the Supreme Court decides about current challenges to the constitutionality of Trump's tariff programs, he will almost certainly try to perpetuate his tariff powers using different legal justifications, and the impact on consumers will continue. Yet his recent reduction of some tariffs on food shows how politically vulnerable he is on this issue and indicates that pressure could force even more reductions. The Yale Budget Lab recently estimated that tariffs will cost American households almost $2,400 a year. In a recent poll, 3/4 of their regular monthly household costs have increased by at least $100 a month from last year. Respondents identified the tariffs as the second biggest threat to the economy. Only 22% supported Trump's tariffs. A demand to end all tariffs on food might win quick and massive support and find allies among the public officials and corporate leaders who are turning against Trump's tariffs. Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada recently introduced the No Tariffs on Groceries Act, saying, Donald Trump lied to the American people when he promised to bring prices down on day one. His reckless tariffs have done the opposite, raising grocery costs and making it harder for hardworking families to put food on the table. Item: restore all food programs. The hunger-producing cuts in nutrition programs like SNAP are immensely unpopular. In October, Republican Senator Josh Hawley, of all people, introduced 2 bills to reinstate SNAP benefits and critical farm programs during the government shutdown. Despite the end of the government shutdown, cuts in SNAP and other nutrition programs are burgeoning. A campaign to cancel all cuts in food programs would have wide popular support and could be spearheaded by local food pantries and those who have lost or will lose their benefits. Legislation to do so was introduced in Congress in late November by Congresswoman Jahana Hayes and others. Item: provide free school meals. Free school meals programs represent a widely accepted form of support for all families without demeaning means tests. In Colorado, voters just passed statewide ballot measures which would raise $95 million annually for school meals by limiting tax deductions for high-income taxpayers. The measures will support Healthy School Meals for All, a state program that provides free breakfast and lunch to all students, regardless of their family's income level. Excess receipts can be used to compensate for the loss of federal SNAP funds. 9 states and many cities already provide free meals for all students. Such programs can directly reduce the money families have to pay for food. Item: expand SNAP to all who need it. A proposal by food insecurity expert Craig Gunderson would provide SNAP benefits to all those with incomes up to 400% of the poverty line. If benefits were also expanded by 25%, it would reduce food insecurity by more than 98%. While such a program is not likely to be instituted all at once, the demand to expand SNAP eligibility could win wide popular support and directly benefit tens of millions of people. According to Gunderson, states can and have set higher eligibility thresholds of up to 200% to the poverty line. Given the wide public outrage over the soaring wealth of the wealthy, surely a tax on high-income people to pay for such a program could win popular support. Item: support community gardens, local farms, and food mutual aid. The Trump administration has eliminated 2 programs that provided schools and food banks $1 billion to buy food from local farms. This has directly impacted food banks, schools, and farmers by cutting off a key market for local produce and reducing the amount of fresh food available to those in need. People don't have to wait for government programs to start growing their own food to fight hunger. In fact, they are doing so already, for example, through community gardens. But state and municipal programs can provide essential support for expanding these efforts. Item: open public grocery stores. New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has proposed a network of city-owned grocery stores focused on keeping prices low rather than on making a profit. They would buy and sell at wholesale prices, centralize warehousing and distribution, and partner with local neighborhoods on products and sourcing. Historically, it has often been hard to find the levers of power to affect food prices. The 1973 meat boycott was powerful enough to bring about token action by President Richard Nixon, but it was unable to parlay participation by families with 50 million members into an effective way to reduce food prices. Around the world, food riots have often been more successful in bringing down governments than in bringing down the price of food. Targeted boycotts have recently proved effective where they could seriously affect a powerful target. Witness the Tesla takedown, causing Elon Musk to withdraw from his Doge disaster, and Disney's rapid rehiring of Jimmy Kimmel. Targets might include food companies that have supported Trump. Today's boycotts are highly effective at generating new and creative tactics. Consider the anti-ICE activists in Los Angeles, Charlotte, and elsewhere who swelled long lines to buy 17-cent ice scrapers, then again swelled long lines to return them, to send a message to Home Depot to scrape ice out of their stores. Boycotts are only one means that could be used for food protests. Local demonstrations and hunger marches can be a vehicle for dramatizing the issue and mobilizing people around it. Food pantries, unions, churches, and other local institutions are in a strong position to initiate such actions. There is no way to know in advance what actions will achieve traction, but that is a good reason to start testing the waters. Under public pressure, many states are stepping up to replace SNAP funding to compensate for federal cuts. A special session of the New Mexico legislature, for example, authorized $20 million weekly to provide state nutrition assistance benefits to the 460,000 New Mexicans who rely on SNAP. But states will only be able to fill in for the federal government for a limited period of time. The New Mexico program, for example, only provides funding through the week of January 19, 2026. At some point, even Republican governors and legislators may well begin demanding re-federalization of food programs. Such a dynamic can be seen in the federalization of relief in the early days of the Great Depression. The entire American establishment, led by President Herbert Hoover, abhorred the idea of federal help for the poor and hungry, maintaining it was exclusively the responsibility of local governments and charities. But hunger marches and other protests, often under the slogan, "Don't starve, fight," created disruption and fear of social upheaval. In response, many cities and states created emergency relief programs, but soon many of them were on the verge of bankruptcy. Once conservative city and state leaders began trooping to Washington to ask for federal support. As Cloward and Piven put it, driven by the protests of the masses of unemployed and the threat of financial ruin, mayors of the biggest cities of the United States, joined by business and banking leaders, had become lobbyists for the poor. Under such pressure, the Hoover administration developed a program of loans to states to pay for relief programs. With the coming of the New Deal, this became an enormously expanded program of federal grants. The New Deal also began to buy surplus commodities from farmers and distribute them to families with low income. While the details are different, this basic dynamic of pressure from people to cities and states to the federal government is still relevant today. Pressure to expand local and state programs is not an alternative to federal programs, but a step to forcing their expansion. One weakness of the 1973 meat boycott was its isolation from the other burgeoning movements of the time, including the civil rights movement, the movement against the Vietnam War, and the large-scale wave of strikes, many of them wildcats. This made it less powerful than it otherwise might have been. A food movement today would have the opportunity for powerful alliances. Like consumers, farmers are being devastated by Trump's tariffs and would benefit from expanded food programs. Like food consumers, farmers are also being hurt by the ICE policies driving farm workers away from the fields. Food inflation might seem to be a middle-class issue, but low-income people spend a substantially higher proportion of their total income on food, so rising food prices affect them even more. In 2023, the 1/5 of the population with the lowest incomes spent nearly 1/3 of their income on food. The highest income fifth spent less than 1/10 of their income on food. The rising cost of food means the poor can buy even less with whatever small funds they have. So low-income and better-off food consumers are natural allies. High food prices were an important reason for Donald Trump's election. He promised to reduce prices on day one of his presidency. Spooked by rising consumer anger at high food prices, on December 6th, Trump established 2 task forces to investigate whether anti-competitive behavior, especially by foreign-controlled companies, increases the cost of living for Americans. An accompanying fact sheet stated, quote, President Trump is fighting every day to reverse Biden's inflation crisis and bring down sky-high grocery prices, and he will not rest until every American feels the relief at the checkout counter. The task forces were instructed to report their findings to Congress within 180 days and present recommendations for congressional action within a year. Not much help for people struggling to put food on the table today. A movement against the failure to bring down high food prices could be a natural ally for the emerging movement to defend society against Trump and MAGA, what I have called social self-defense. Conversely, the emerging movement-based opposition to Trump and MAGA has everything to gain by encouraging the development of a movement that allows millions of people to fight, not starve.